you're an entrepreneur and you've made something that's cheaper than bottled water, and it has to do with water, and it's like something like this big. And what is this invention that these people don't know about that they need to know about and is just awesome?
Sure. So I've spent the last couple decades in the renewable energy space, and about a decade ago, I started thinking about, how could we translate not just photons into electricity, but how could we translate photons into other resources? And for sure, humanity's greatest challenge is drinking water. And so what we developed is what we call the hydropanel, which takes in sunlight and air and makes safe drinking water under basically any Earth-relevant conditions. So in the driest places on the planet that's Vanuatu in the South Pacific.
So is that your product in the background?
Yeah, those are the array of hydropanels for that village.
So they're laying out, they get photons from the sun.
Yep.
And that converts it not into electrical energy, but into that drinking water that's clean.
You got it. Yep. So
and it wouldn't have been clean if it wasn't for this.
Holding yesterday's sunlight and consuming it.
Yeah. And how is that cheaper than bottled water? That looks pretty expensive. I mean, like at night, I could see people saying, "Oh, let's go take that apart and sell it on the black market."
That's a fascinating point. One of the very first pilots we did was in some of the slums of Guayaquil, Ecuador. And the folks there said, by the way, this is made of glass and metal and plastic, and it'll be great for the first day, but overnight everything will be taken apart, and the next day it'll be gone. Come back a year later, not one is touched. Why? Because it makes water, right?
And water's like gold.
It's better than gold.
It's life.
Yeah.
So in the global economy, $100 trillion global economy, how does this unlock people's time? Like, how does this empower women, people on the margins? What is this giving them that they wouldn't have if this wasn't in their community?
I mean, drinking water is humanity's greatest problem, right? We have, in every country in the world, every state in the United States, massive drinking water issues. I mean, I'm sure many people heard about New Orleans this last month with saltwater intrusions, saltwater coming up the Mississippi, destroying the water table there. Jackson last year, the 1.5 million miles of lead pipes that are still in the ground. But I started the company because today, on this date, is it today, the 11th of November 2023, 200 million hours will be spent by women and girls fetching water. 200 million hours fetching water.
So
and of course, they're not fetching.
Walk somewhere, they put it in a jug, they bring it back.
Exactly, and of course, they're not fetching potable water. Right, so this is not like that's the solution. That just is the beginning of many knock-on effects associated with that. And so, if we can democratize drinking water in much the same way that solar is starting to democratize electricity, and in the way that your cell phone, there are more smartphones on the planet than there are humans at this point, and so you move from a place of information poverty looking backwards to a place where almost all humans have access to all of humanity's information. So could you imagine a technology, a renewable approach to water that takes us out of the Roman era where we're waiting for the stuff to fall out of the sky and soak in the ground and then pump it and treat it and whatever else, to something that is programmable, democratized, positionable? I think that's Dubai there, in a way that changes people's lives and changes the relationship to water.
So this is empowering. We curated ideas that we think by the year 2030 can have real impact if we scale them. How does this help us be a more sustainable society? Does this help us? And what does that look like a year from now, 5 years from now, 2030, and then even further out?
Yeah.
If we do this.
Yeah, if you have good infrastructure at your home, you're lucky. You're sort of lucky half of humanity. The official number is that at least 1/3 of humanity does not have safe access to water at their home. Yeah. And that number is growing due to climate change and underinvestment. And the stats are infuriating if you look closely. Today, we're about 8 years into this effort, and we're in 52 countries now. And yet we're just at the tip of the iceberg for what this can do. The architecture, the approach that we've taken, has the ability to be the lowest cost delivered potable water on the planet as it scales. That in the same way that solar took this sort of exponential cost curve, in the same way that batteries are doing that now, hydropanels are on that same trajectory in a way that really disrupts how people get their drinking water.
How defensible is this? Like, if someone open it up, could they reverse engineer it and make it themselves and not need you? Like
Yeah,
is this open source, or
yeah. I mean, there's
are you
many ways
exploiting
that
people with this technology? Like
there's many elements of our technology that are absolutely reverse engineerable, and then there's other elements that would be very difficult. The material science is probably relatively difficult to reverse engineer. But let's say that somebody put in that effort and happened to like steal the idea and go, great. It's an infinite problem for a single company. So, you know, from the point of view of sort of thinking about it from a competitive tensions perspective, you know, I think we're sort of positive sum thinkers, right? You've got a problem statement that is too big for a single entity to take on.
So you said you're in a number of countries. What's the surface area of your surface if you add it all up in all the countries you are?
Oh, geez. I don't know the answer to that question, but we're serving probably on the order of, you know.
Or what's the metrics you use?
Yeah, 500,000 people at this point, and, you know, growing rapidly.
And as water rises, or because of climate, places become unsafe, and it's harder for people to walk and get clean water, this can help people be more stable in their communities because you're getting it from the ether.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because what's the big idea here in terms of sustainability by the end of the decade?
So you are no longer sort of beholden to whether the liquid stuff is there or not, whether or not there are pathogens in it or not, whether or not there is, you know, are heavy metals in that water, whether or not you own the rights to that water, whether or not the local.
And these are all sticky things.
Yeah, all the sticky things.
More of an issue.
Exactly.
As we enter the next chapter of whatever this planet is doing.
Precisely. And this sort of leapfrogs all of those issues, right? So when you, so I have hydropanels in my home, and every day that I fill up a glass of water, you know, I'm holding yesterday's sunlight, and I know the entire history of that water.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a fundamentally different thing than all of the other water that we consume in our lives.
Yeah. So last question, as an entrepreneur, how did you choose to help the developing world, or help, like why do you go into this scalable technology? Why not just sell a ripoff of Angry Birds to Silicon Valley? Like, why do you go this route?
Yeah, fair. The super fair question. You know, I mean, I think most people are interested in the sort of climate problem because it's a problem of global scale. But the sort of climate change rooster first comes home to roost at the human scale, right? The problems are human at their limit. And so how can we start to think about bringing people, you know, adapting them to the world that we have now and making them resilient to the world that's coming, and doing that from, you know, from a renewable or sustainable approach. And so that's what got me really excited about tackling
Great
water.
Well, thank you.
Thanks so much.
This is the first of many entrepreneurs on stage.